Welcome back to the Yosan University 39 Jump 39 Chin podcast. I have a really awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name's Naumann. I'm on the podcast because I'm a
Sweet.
Chinese medicine doctor. Um, I got my master's and doctorate from AOMA in Austin, Texas, which is where I'm living and practicing. And I wrote my doctoral treatise on Qigong and the effects of vibrational healing. So I really dove deep
That's
into
awesome.
the practices, of medical Qigong and like the biofield and energy medicine.
What got you into Chinese medicine? How did you go down this path?
Mm, yeah. I like in hindsight, you kind of
Yeah.
see maybe it was always going to happen this way. So we had a lot of herbal books when I was growing up in Native American medicine, and Encyclopedia Britannicas in the house, like pre-internet.
Nice.
Over Christmas, a few Christmases, I would kind of interview my family, my neighbors, and find their ailments, and then I would come up with like food as medicine, herbal remedies for them and make gifts. Um, I was a bit of a piano prodigy, so I went to University of Texas and studied music composition and was really into music and sound and worked with this wonderful man who became my mentor and is part of my story. His name was George Reef, and we made a record together. And the concept originally was like having a record of say 10 songs and meet people where they were. And I think nowadays we use the language like raise their vibration, which isn't inaccurate, but that phrase kind of makes me cringe a little bit, but it's not inaccurate. So just by the end of the record, that there just be kind of this swell of elevation into a place of just bliss and peace. And that really didn't happen with the record because it was my first one. It was kind of a singer-songwriter thing, but that concept we talked about a lot over at least 2 decades. And um, then it's kind of my story. I got married and had a child, and the marriage didn't work out. Though my son is like the most amazing thing ever. And
I love my daughter as well, so I feel you.
yeah, it's like feeling into that unconditional love of our children is like the place where healing happens. It's just so powerful, so massive. Um, I became anemic when I was pregnant. Perhaps had been anemic my entire adult life. I'm not sure. And was really sick after I had him and kind of went on this road of trying to figure out how to heal the body. And
Hmm.
George, my mentor, producer friend, was like, "Why don't you try acupuncture?" And I was like, "What's that?" And so he sent me to the student clinic at Yalma, and as fate would have it, the person overseeing the clinic was Dr. Will Morris, who was our dean and president. And so Will became my mentor in herbs and pulse taking and attuned me to Reiki and all these things. But at that juncture, he had me coming in like 6 weeks and doing raw herbs. And I remember third or fourth treatment, I started to feel better. And I was like, if this works, I'm quitting my job and going
Yeah.
back to school to study this medicine. And my job was I was teaching yoga and playing jazz in the evening and teaching music at a private school. And it was already kind of in these healing arts. And Will was a musician and talked about the chakras and used tuning forks and the acupuncture points. And so the way he practiced fits so much in line with what I was already doing with my life. And so it just seemed like the natural progression of things. And luckily, I loved it. Luckily, it made sense, and I'm good at it. I mean, if there can be such a thing. And so that is what led me into the medicine.
No, once you got into the medicine, what was it that as you were going through school, what were the things that really spoke to you? What was the stuff that really got you excited? Was it the herbs? Was it the acupuncture? Was it something else?
Mm. I mean, at different points in time, probably all of it. But what I remember being the most alive during school was learning about the energetics of the point, and that
Mm,
these points in the body had a tangible, measurable, they call it energetics, like energetic. And then it could do all these different things on the physical level, on the emotional level, on the spiritual level. you start combining them and it becomes this matrix over the body that it was like anything was possible. And it just made everything made so much sense. That was the most fascinating to me. And then there's so many different systems to approach acupuncture as well. And
Right.
I learned a handful or so, but there's just so many more to learn. I feel like I'm in some ways a perpetual forever student beginner learning different systems endlessly.
Which is awesome. And you're spot on. Like there's so much, you can look at, Korean hand acupuncture. Do you want to study channel theory? Do you want to study, balance method? There's just so much out there that's really interesting. And each one is its own thing. It's really fun to see that there's this rabbit hole that you can go down.
Yeah. And it's just like, which paradigm are you going to look at each, which juncture with which patient? But yeah.
It's a toolkit. I remember growing up, my grandpa had the best toolkit. It was a cool toolkit. It was old, vintage, and it was like this old steel one that popped out, and it had all of these cool things inside. And he had it. He was meticulous with his toolkit. I mean, it was really well kept and organized. And when I opened it up, I just looked in there and I was like, there was something that could do anything. So if whatever happened in the house, he would have a tool in his toolkit to fix it. And it was just amazing to watch this work. And as you're talking about that, I just think about, no two patients are the same. They come in with a variety of things, and then you can go, well, maybe for this patient, I'm gonna take a little bit of this,
Mhm.
and then, oh, I'm gonna pull in a little bit of this, and then you bring that together and find and meet the patient where they're at. It's such a beautiful thing to be able to do,
So incredible. And the way that you're talking about it and moving, it's like the art form of the science. So,
right?
yeah,
Right.
it's so unique and so individual and so beautiful.
It's interesting how people put things together, and it's interesting from you coming from a musical background. I was uh, working on putting a song together. I have a daughter who has a YouTube channel, and we were doing fun songs for kids. It's a new area we're branching out into,
Mhm.
and we do. That's not the channel has been all educational stuff. It was something that she and I love doing together, and so we put this channel together. And as we were putting the song together, there's different pieces that you have to put into place, and it's like everything fits, and the harmonies and all of this, it's just fun. And why I'm bringing that up is because when you were talking about your music and this something that raises the people's vibration, how do you approach working with people and bringing their prescription together, their
Mm.
pieces together? How do you approach a patient and think
Ah,
about that?
oh, interesting. You shifted right at the last minute from what I thought you were going to ask me.
Oh, what did you think I was going to ask? I was going to go on direction. What are you going to? What do you?
Like, how do you raise
I
people's vibration?
well, I was going to ask that, but then I was like, then you said I was thinking about that, but then you said that like you were against it. So let's dive in to
Let's cover
raising
both.
vibration. Yeah, it's a little bit of
Sure, let's
both,
cover both. Yeah, I mean, I'll have to show you the, cause I'm in my treatment room right now. This space has so many different tools, like the
nice,
toolbox.
nice.
I think what works for me, I can't really even explain. It feels somehow potentially on a quantum level that I don't quite understand. I went to this art gallery opening 2 days ago with this artist Sebastian, and he's really famous. He's working with n- quantum physicists and creates this art that are like, I don't even know the language of it. They're like cones. They're like spin tops. They bring 3D into 4D into 5D, and he's able to demonstrate what's
That's right.
happening in a way that's like conceptual through art. And it was fascinating to me because I've seen this sacred geometry in the field, or sometimes even using the points, right? Like the tree of life, and they make these patterns. Like sometimes I'll, it's funny, this is not what I thought I was going to be answering, but thanks for just following me down this little rabbit hole. Um, I have intention with the points because of the education, knowing what the energetics do, but at a certain point, there's this synthesis of like all the teachings and this knowings, like you have eyes on your fingertips and just trusting spirit to move. And sometimes I'll put the points in after feeling the pulse and kind of having my pattern diagnoses, so to speak. And I'll kind of put the needles in and then kind of step back, and it's almost like reverse engineering what happened. And every now and then there'll be a needle that I'm like, why did I put that there? That's interesting. And then I'll think about what it does, and then I'll ask the patient a question. And sure enough, like almost every time, it was something they needed that they hadn't told me during intake, but just happened.
Yeah.
That isn't answering any of your questions, but
No, it's
this
awesome.
is
But
how it
I
works.
wanted to you talked to something that I love, because it's something that I noticed as well. Like I've met therapists that have this like honing sense.
Mhm.
There's this one guy, I used to work at a spa doing massage, and one of the therapists' name was Nestor. And Nestor is the sweetest soul you have ever met. He's he is just a bundle of love in this human suit. But Nestor has this like these magnet fingers. He'll just walk up behind you going, "Hi, how are you doing?" And I've had massage that the massage therapist was skilled. They gave me a good massage. It was very by the book. And I didn't feel any benefit besides just a little bit of relaxation. But I've also had massage therapists that just they come in, they go, "That's the spot." Boom. You're like, "Whoa, that's it." And this
Yeah.
is Nestor. Nestor will walk up and just put his hand on your shoulder, and he's just like, and you're just like, "Yep, that's it.
Really.
That's it."
This intuitive knowing that just runs through you. And I wonder if certain people have different cognitions. Um, I've I love systems theories of all things, so I've studied multiple systems, and one of them talked about like through our sense gate. So mine's kinesthetic, which I sometimes wish it wasn't because I love energy medicine and the idea of distance healing. But if I touch a body, I know what's going on, and
Me
really, it's
too.
like eyes on my fingers feeling the pulse. So you're the same way,
Yep,
yeah.
100%.
But some people are visual; they can just watch the way someone walks, and they just know, or smell, or listening. Like there's different people have different cognitions and intuitions. And yeah, I very much know what you're speaking of. And I sat with, to go back to this, what seemed kind of out of nowhere story I'll try to piece through our conversation today. So this artist and this quantum physicist of this like opening up to the other day, what struck me about it was I sat with a woman a few weeks ago, a healer. I don't know that she would call herself this. And we were really just, she shifts her consciousness into the subtle realms and takes everyone in the room with her. And then she just opens it up into like awakened awareness. And all of us like, went with her, and they asked for anyone that wanted to volunteer for a healing. And I was like, sure, what's this about?
I'm down.
Exactly. And I had to close my eyes because I felt nervousness of everyone staring at me. And I mentioned I felt like everything was spinning. And she asked permission to touch me. And she touched my hand, and she's like, "What do you feel?" And I was like, "It's like a spin top." And then it stopped and it reversed the direction. And I had this pain kind of going through my shoulder around my neck that I've had ever since I can remember. If I have pain, it's always there. And it was like this red electric feeling that went on for a little while. And when it stopped, the pain is gone. It hasn't come back. It was like 3 weeks ago. I don't know what happened. I don't know how to explain what happened. I mean, I was right for it to happen and open for it to happen. I mean, was it a placebo? I'm not really sure, but like something, she was one of those people, right? She touched my hand. She just touched my shoulder. And then my body just, it really like recalibrated, reorganized into.
There's a there's a there's a great book, or there's a great series on TV that Morgan Freeman narrated called Through the Wormhole. And it's phenomenal. And it goes into some of the science. Yes, write it down, watch it. It's so good. And some of the science of unexplained phenomenon, because we tend to look at these things and go, and so people will be, especially in the science community, have times are dismissive. But the reality is many are not. Many are going out there and going, let's study this. Let's look at this stuff. There were two interesting things that they brought up in there. And one lady, I believe, was a Nobel Prize, either a finalist or winner. And she explored the fact that humans are able to perceive the future.
Mm.
And this was how they did it. One of the things, this is the experiment they did. They sat all these people down in front of a computer. Now, the computer was going to show different images, either a happy face or an image that would scare people, something that would be like they would be happy about, or something that would be jarring and scary. And what they noticed is that people were able to sense, reacted. They had them all hooked up to electrodes. People had a reaction, like I think it was milliseconds before the image came on the screen. They were able to react before
Mhm.
to this scary influence, and they were like, we don't know how this is possible, but
Yeah.
this is going on. And there was another one that there was a
Well, the time
great.
isn't really past, present, future, right? If we push it
Mm-hmm.
into just one more dimension or more, it's all happening
Right.
all at once.
Right.
So that premonition, it's already
Yep.
happened.
And there was another great story about the monkeys in Japan. I can't remember which episode it was in, but they talked about how the monkeys in Japan were really interesting. Now, the monkeys in Japan, in northern Japan, everyone now, you go online and you see them in the hot springs. And this is the thing they're famous for. These monkeys are just chilling in the hot springs. It's freezing cold outside. And the monkeys are just like, yes, we are in this hot water. Now, it was interesting because there are two completely separate groups of monkeys on the island of Hokkaido. They are geographically isolated populations. Now, the southern population was witnessing tourists go in and go into the hot springs, and the southern population witnessed this and started copying the tourists. Now, no, none of the monkeys had been observed ever demonstrating this behavior of getting into the hot springs. Now, when the southern population suddenly started copying this, it was suddenly something the scientists noticed. These monkeys all started getting into the hot springs and were soaking, and it became, they were like, yeah, this is nice. Why would we want to sit out in the cold air when we can be in the hot springs? The northern population at the exact same time started to exhibit the exact same behavior without ever being exposed to the people getting in the water, because it was an isolated population away from tourists. And it was like, the stuff is out there, and it's like we just don't understand it. So there's so much of chi and sensory, and this is one of the things I love about Yosan. And I don't know about all the schools, but I studied at a couple, and Yosan has their chi development curriculum, which is all about learning to be sensitive to chi, learning to be sensitive to energy, because this is what we're doing, you know.
Yeah. And that's what I love about medical qigong. It's yeah. Or like
Talk to me about it.
when I teach qigong classes here in Austin, I really kind of just do events seasonally, not weekly classes anymore. But I was teaching at Aoma, and I had taught medical qigong at Yosan last year, I think. But via Zoom, which is interesting. So
Yeah.
try to right. But one of the things I would do with beginners, and this is more not Chinese medicine students, just like my neighbors, is clap your hands, rub them until you create heat, right? And then slowly separating them, feeling like lightning shooting back and forth between them, and just seeing like that heat is energy, the static electricity is energy, or like kind of the dialogue, right? Like the character for Qi in Chinese being the steam coming off the bowl of rice, and the alchemy of fire and water, and these discussions. But that's kind of where I start as a foundational basics to begin to understand, and doing simple Tai Chi moves outside in the grass, or breathing with the tree and feeling the symbiotic relationship of the inhale, exhale, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and or like doing microcosmic orbit with the tree from crown to crown and root to root, and really starting to feel the energy currents and move and the breathing together. And that seems to have been really effective over the years for me. I even joke about that tree practices. I call it tree gong, which is not really a thing, but it's cute. um, it really seems to help begin the foundation of developing the sensitivities of the hands or the perception. Yeah. And then back to your original question about raising
Yeah,
the
yeah.
vibration. um, for me, what I've found that really, really works is my nervous system is regulated, and I'm in a place of just a state of what I call unconditional love. I think there's probably better ways to describe that. If a client, patient, friend, person is breathing, I don't
Hmm.
mean in a state of complete dysregulation and panic. That would be a little bit different. But just the average person coming in day to day can just sit and you can hold that field with them, then your heart, right? It's like the electromagnetic field of the heart will begin to sync. And then they can, wherever they are, kind of meet you. And then you can play with it where you want to go. And I have these tuning forks. I'm looking up here because they're on my shelves. That's like a fundamental with the different brain waves. So I like to use the theta a lot. They're like binaural beats when someone's on the table. That really seems to help get in that liminal space between awake and asleep. Um, that's the thing that most of my patients comment on that they really enjoy the most. Mhm.
That's
And
awesome.
so, yeah, I don't know that it's so much that I'm seeking to like raise someone's vibration somewhere, like there's some goal or destination, but some meeting each other somewhere in this field. For me, it just feels like really warm and peaceful and pregnant with the possibility and potentiality of anything that's just genuine love. The vibration, right? Like not like giving love or receiving love, but just like the beingness of love itself. We don't have enough words in our vocabulary for what I mean by love. I guess chi. I used to say chi is love. A friend of mine printed a T-shirt like that one that said that on there
That's
for
awesome.
me. But
I,
yeah, chi cultivation.
It's awesome. Well, you
Mhm.
in your couple of fun things. I remember that I got into the sensitivity development with. I had a great martial arts teacher who actually then went on and became an acupuncturist as well. He took him about 8 years, and he was going in the evenings, and he finished his degree. But when we were early training, we did the bubble. We did the, can you sense it? Can you feel it? And we would do the bubble, and then he would have someone come up and run their hand between. Can you
Yeah.
sense when the hand comes between?
Yeah.
And it was funny because he would also have us sit in the middle and kind of close our eyes and then have four people around us and have one person point and see if you could feel where the intention of the pointing was coming from. And it's kind of funny because I had, I was picking up my daughter from school, and I never can miss someone taking a picture of me. I always now feel it. And I felt like
Mm.
I was like, something's weird going on right now. And I had someone just holding a camera on me. And it was my father-in-law. He was sitting over there and he was laughing at me because he thought I didn't see him. And I was just like, there you are. There
Everything
you
passed
are.
on.
Yep, you can't. I was just like, I felt that. And it was just something I felt,
Mhm. Mhm.
something that popped up. But it's beautiful when you can then apply that to a patient. I remember one of the first times that I kind of sensed something was when I was doing a massage on someone, and I just felt where the blockage was, and it just felt, you could feel it. You could feel there was something right here. And I was like, this is before taking medical Qigong or acupuncture. And I was just like, okay, there's something stuck here. And I did some massage. And afterwards, this person came back to me going, I don't know what's going on, but it feels like it's flowing. And these are the words that they were describing. It feels like it's flowing now. And I was just like, and then I got into acupuncture school and I was like, flowing felt stuck. And I was just like, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. This is so real.
Yeah, the language is so poetic, and whether it's musical language or the language of nature, right? Or like flow
Right?
and stuck. I remember someone probably will with the simplest version, we practiced how to explain how acupuncture works or what it means, right? It was just like a log
Yeah.
crossed over and like created a dam in the water. So the needle just moved
Yes.
the tree out of the way so the could flow.
Right.
And
I
it's
love
also
that.
like, so you cultivate these skills of knowing where something's going on and maybe somewhat tell what is, if it's blocked, then it's like, well, now what do we do? And that's
Yeah.
also acupuncture or medical qigong, right? Because there's like reiki and there's all these different methods. Or how you were talking about you're a martial artist. I don't know.
Teacher.
Shifu, I don't
Yeah.
teacher. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know which types of what the name of my
Sensei.
sensei. I just wanted to honor
Yeah.
the correct name. Um,
Yeah.
doing the bubble exercise or the cut. Sometimes having someone do this and like feeling that energy go back and forth in their like pineal
Ooh,
gland, pituitary gland, I've found has been really, or like setting an intention, right? So like holding this healing ball of energy and then offering it to yourself. And
that's
then once you
awesome.
practice and doing that, right? Like maybe through the microcosmic orbit, cultivating this ball of energy healing to offer to someone else. And so I
That's
really
awesome.
love teaching that. And then that can be across time and space, because maybe it's someone that's not with us anymore, but you imagine they're just sitting in front of you and you're offering it to them. Or it's like limitless,
It's awesome.
beautiful ways to offer this. Yeah.
How did you get into medical qigong? How did you go down this path?
Mm, more luck, fate. um, the program at AOMA, which sadly AOMA is closed as of this year, as many schools have. We had to take, it was required during the master's degree to take 3 semesters of Tai Qi, 3 semesters of Qigong, and then you could choose a medical Qigong or tuina specialty, or you could do both. You just had to pay to take the extra. I did
Yeah.
everything that they would let me do.
Right.
And my teacher at the time, his name was John Stewart. He's still teaching medical Qigong in Connecticut. Uh, he was our teacher that semester in the dojo. And for me, it was how I remember like first learning yoga at 19. I was just like, what is this? How can I do this for the rest of my life? And that feeling just only increased every day. So my favorite days were when we had like 2 hours of medical Qigong, 1 and 2 and 3. And it was so intuitive and so profound for me. And I am also very visual, like this kind of visual, like my eyes closed vision kind of visual. I don't know what we call this. Pineal gland, third eye. How does Chinese medicine refer to this type of knowing visions?
Tantien is here. The Tantien.
Dantian. Yeah, but this could be an
Tantien.
upper dantian. I should
Maybe
know
maybe
this,
an
but I
upper.
don't know. Okay. Well, maybe someone will comment and let us know.
Right.
Have a whole little rabbit
Put the
chase
comments down
around
below.
that. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of the way that I was being taught had a lot of visualizations in it also. And just like I came to Yosan because Dr. Rob Hoffman and I were ordained in Parting Clouds, the Kwanzaa Naumann Taoist education together
Yeah.
2 years ago. So there, in a lot of the Taoist practices, there are visualizations also, but sometimes they're external, right? Like with the sun and the moon and the Big Dipper, but sometimes they are happening in the internal landscape of the body.
Mm-hmm.
But that's always been it's come naturally to me, but it's also incredibly fascinating to me because it wasn't ontologically the worldview that I grew up with or even knew of until my 30s when I started studying this medicine in earnest. Um, so medical qigong just made sense to me, and it was difficult to find very many true teachers. Though it's one of the beautiful things about the interweb these days is it's like so many things are at our fingertips, which is so incredible. But then having the discernment of who's a true teacher or not. Um, I don't want to. I won't
I
say anything
understand.
else about that.
I'm hearing you.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So Ailma brought in other teachers when I wanted to study that as a focus of the doctoral program. We had the option to do the pain track with the DAOM. So I did the DACOM, so I went straight from master's and doctorate. I know these things are different at different universities around the country, and I'm not even sure the latest on how we're trying to consolidate an agreement amongst everyone, um, just to have the highest of standards and consistency. So we could do the pain, we could do research, or we could do an honors concentration. And so I did the same thing at the University of Texas with my bachelor's. I like pieced together what I wanted to take and got all the deans of the departments to agree to give me credit and created my own path. It's kind of choose your own adventure.
That's awesome.
So it was, I was looking into the biofield originally and was maybe looking down the research path and went and did everything for an IRB. And this is a little more of my story. I'm weaving
Great.
into this. So during that time, my friend George Reeve, who I mentioned at the beginning, that was my mentor and producer, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I ended up being one of his primary caretakers and got to walk him home. He lived 11 more months after that, but that diagnosis came toward the beginning of the doctoral program. So I spent a lot of time commuting to MD Anderson and learning about integrative oncology care
Mm.
and the life and death and birth process. So that sent me into what I thought at the time was an existential crisis. It was really kind of, I've come to learn the term ontological shock. It was just like both realities couldn't be true. Like what I believed to be true and what I experienced and witnessed were in direct conflict. And so
Mm.
kind of shattered everything. And it took me a while to create some scaffolding of reality again. So I did some doctoral rotations in Kyoto, Japan through Emperor's College. I
Hmm.
was able to transfer those into my degree and began sitting in a Zen monastery there in Myoshinji, which is the Renzai tradition, and found a teacher in the United States and at the Zen Center and started doing week-long sessions, like week-long silent meditation retreats. And I was doing that for a few years when the Taoist gate opened to follow that path, which is so beautiful because it's Zen, or it's Buddhist and Taoist and Confucian, and that really incorporates everything together as a spiritual path alongside the medicine. So it's kind of this
Hmm.
missing piece that they didn't really know yet what was missing, mostly about virtuosity and the cultivation of ourself also as the medicine. So what's also interesting as this all evolves is that I'm really learning and experiencing in a way, it's very simplistic, oversimplistic to say, but our very presence, due to our cultivation, becomes the medicine. So, like, we get to be one of the tools in that toolbox. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
There was there is a great Bill Moyers series from way back in the day showing some of the medical qigong in China. And it was just amazing to see the the skill of these masters, and just the results were there, and these people were like, the master's holding his hand over like this, and the person's like, I feel heat. And they were, and then they're sitting there and they're measuring it, and the temperature was going up on this person's, the surface of their skin. It wasn't just reported heat, it was actually increasing as this person just holding their hands there. And it was just like, it's fascinating. And there's so much to the world that we don't fully understand. And the beauty is doesn't mean it's not real. And that's what I loved about that through the wormhole series. There is a whole level of things that we don't understand. But I think of it this way. Uh, there was a great line in Marvel where Thor's like, super handsome Christopher Hemsworth is like, what you think of as magic, we or science or whatever. It's like, it's science, but he's like, what we see as science, you guys call magic, and it's like, there is this realm of stuff that you go back in time and you tell someone about 300 years ago, Wi-Fi. There's this thing called Wi-Fi, and that a device on one side of the world can talk to a device on the other side of the world. You'll be able to talk to some. I remember when I was a kid, the conceptualizing a camera phone was mind blowing. Like, there's someday there will be phones with cameras. It's just like, no way. And when I
Sci-fi,
moved,
Jetsons.
right, yeah, I live in Southeast Asia, and like right now I'm in Vietnam, and you are in Austin, and like we're having this conversation across the world. When I first moved to Vietnam in 2001, I like, phone calls were $1 a minute. I called my family like once in like a whole year, and I was just like looking up, and it's like, $1. I love you. How are you doing? It's great to talk to you. All right, I gotta go. This is like
Yeah.
$10 already. And
Yeah.
and there were stories about people that live far away who were sending cassettes because it was just so challenging. We have just these huge jumps forwards in tech.
Mhm.
Like, I think that there's so much of the body, so much about us that we don't understand, but that Chinese medicine has this 2,000 plus year history of understanding these things and just being present with it. And whether that be beyond just TCM, like, Chinese, the Korean systems, the
Mhm.
systems of medical Qigong, there's so much there. And I think that, like you said, was it placebo? It works.
Nice.
Who knows what it
Right.
is?
And what we're
It
calling
works.
magic is just what we don't have the ability to explain yet. And yet it is. measurable, or like with thermographs. I've seen this famous ones where they put a needle in large intestine 4, and you see it change. You see the red and improve the colors. Like, we can measure it. We just can't explain all of it yet. And yet it's working. So if we can help other people, help each other, help ourselves heal, more wholeness, more wellness, more love, more beauty, more creation, more connection.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
So much yes. 100%. And I think that that's it. There was once someone that I had a professor in school, and I can't remember what it was, and we were getting ready to put the needles into this person, and the person was really like, it was like one of those type A business people. This guy was like, he had his phone out, he was doing this, he was getting ready to get his treatment, but he was still like texting away. And my professor was like, and the guy's like, what is it acupuncture stuff's gonna do, man? I don't know. And he's like, it's gonna hold you in your body. It's gonna
Mm.
hold you in that body for a couple minutes, because right now you're not in your body. You're out there, you're out there, you're out there. And it was interesting to see this guy who came in because a friend told him about it. And he came out and he was like, I'm here right now. And it's just beautiful because this person was coming in for back pain or something, and yet they left brighter. They raised their vibration, if you want to
Yeah.
say it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I think one of my favorite compliments I ever heard, and I feel if I were to say to someone is one of the higher compliments I could give, is like, I feel the most like myself than I felt. Yeah. Like in the present moment.
So beautiful. Where do you want to go in your next steps in this medicine?
I'm searching to see if there's another answer that arises, but it doesn't. So I recently moved within Austin, but just a little bit to the outskirts of town in the hill country near the water. And there's like a family of deer that hang out in my yard. And it's peaceful and quiet and spacious. And um, I really would love to start teaching more. And it kind of
Nice.
surprises me. And I was hesitant to say that because I have these ideas of a certain level I need to achieve before I'm stepping more into the role of teaching. I don't think of it so much as teacher, but just wanting to share the wealth of knowledge and wisdom I've been blessed to acquire in this lifetime from so many amazing teachers that have become the synthesis of the way that I practice, but particularly in the realm of medical Qigong and Qi cultivation. And also, I sit in this kind of still point of both being fascinated, wanting to understand what it is that's happening, the magic,
Yeah.
the mystery,
Yeah.
and also loving, surrendering to the mystery, and the not knowing, and just knowing that it works,
Yeah.
that it transforms us, and the wanting to understand. And maybe I don't even need to understand. I would love to cultivate more skills to be able to help more people.
I love that.
And as I learn those, then share that with as many people as possible.